Okay, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I guess I should maybe say good evening because that's where everybody else will be watching this. But you
That's
and I are
right.
in the morning. It's Sunday morning
For
here.
us, it's just noon. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, I guess it's not morning, although I stayed up till 2 a.m. chatting with Megan and stitching. So it feels like
Oh,
morning still to me. But anyways,
yeah.
we had fun.
How
We had fun.
fun.
So let me introduce myself, the podcast, you, all that good stuff. So I'm Melissa McLeod. I'm here at the Wool and the Floss in Detroit, Michigan. And with my partner in crime, Megan Holmes, we're the Pointing It Out team here every week talking all things needlepoint and related to needlepoint. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Daria Harvey, who is the author of the Legacy Journal. And the little secret that I didn't know about her until recently, when I got really excited, was that she's also a professional organizer. And I have to say that makes my heart do a nice little pitter pat. My kids say if there were a fire in the house, you'd probably save the label maker before anything else.
Well, I knew we were kindred spirits when I watched your podcast and you were like, here's my journal with my goals for the year of my needlepoint. And I was like, oh yeah, she's my people. Yeah.
So yes, I was thrilled. I think where where I found out you were a professional organizer was when you posted your pictures of your stretcher bars with them all numbered,
Yeah.
with their inches on it. Which yes, of course I do that too. And some people probably hate us for that, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are looking to like get their stash organized so they're not rebuying the same things and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
So,
Mhm.
but let's talk for a minute about your legacy journal. I think it's a very cool product. We've had them in the store. Um, so why don't we talk about what inspired you to do that, and maybe your background of stitching, because I think they're all tied
Oh
together.
yeah. Yeah. So my mom and so she taught me to cross stitch when I was really young, and I just kept cross stitching and kept cross stitching. And I was like, oh, someday I'll learn to needlepoint, like, like when I'm old, like now. And I was like, someday I'll learn that. And then I went off to college. And when I came home from college, I was informed that she was going in the next day for a mastectomy, that
Mm,
she had breast cancer. She didn't tell me because, it was my senior year of college and she didn't want me to worry. Um, and that I'm the only girl, I'm the youngest. I have three older brothers, and I had always known that she wanted me to needlepoint, that she wanted to pass that down to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to do this. I have to do this now. And so when she was feeling better, she taught me to needlepoint. And then, but I never lived back. So she lived in Tulsa. I went to school at Indiana University, and then I moved to New York City, and then I moved to Chicago, where I met my husband, and then moved to North Carolina. So I never lived in the same town with her. And so I would go to visit, when my children got older, we would do like a week long, we called it Stitchapalooza, where we would go and do nothing but stitch and shop and go out to dinner. It was awesome.
my dream
Um,
vacation.
I know. It was like going to the spa, And she passed away last year, right before the pandemic hit. Yeah, it's always horrible. And so I inherited all her needlepoint because she had told me, you're the only stitcher in the family. You
Right.
get the needlepoint and then you decide what to do with it. So came home, opened up the cedar chest, and I was sort of like, oh, I don't remember her stitching this one. Like, where did this one come from? Or like my sister-in-law sent me a picture of this gorgeous Christmas tree skirt that my mom made for her. And I was like, I didn't know she did that. And so I was like, like I kind of wish I knew why she chose a certain canvas or like when she stitched it or what was going on in her life at the time. And
Oh,
then I was like, you know what? I should start to do that for my own pieces so that my children will have that information.
right.
I have a daughter and a son. And then I was like, duh, I am probably not the only one who would do this. I should create a journal. So,
And first of all, I have to say, it must have made your mom so happy to have someone who loved her craft as well. Like I have two daughters and a son, and my one daughter's an expert knitter, and
mhm.
she keeps trying to love to needlepoint, but it just hasn't bitten her yet. And the other does,
Mhm.
there's a chance maybe later on, but right now, no. So right now I have, no one to share that with. So that must have made her really, really happy.
Yeah. Yeah, we had so much fun, and then we would call each other when we finished something, and, if we weren't together, we would call each other, and I'd be like, "Did you feel that tilt of the earth?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, I did." And I was like, "I finished," name of the canvas, and we do a little happy dance, over the phone. So we had a lot of fun together.
And do any of your kids stitch?
Well, I'm trying to get my daughter, into it. She is just about to turn 23, lives in Chicago. She knits, she paints, she writes poetry. So I think she's got that creative
Right.
bent. Um, but I haven't quite, snagged her yet. But I'm sort of like, she's the only daughter she's gonna have to learn. She just hasn't figured that out yet. And
Yeah.
my son, I could actually see him enjoying it. He's pretty methodical. He's like an engineer, and so he's, precise, but we just I haven't
Right.
gone there. Yeah.
Well, and I think more, at least my gut is what I'm seeing out there, more men are willing to embrace things that are stress relievers, and they're starting to
Yes.
get that this is
A
that
big
option.
stress reliever,
Yeah, yeah. So,
definitely.
so I'm hoping that in the not too distant future, this will be less of a woman's craft as it's sometimes labeled, which isn't very fair because there's a lot of outstanding male stitchers.
Yes.
But historically, although way back in history, all the stitchers were men. So, if you go back to like the 1600s, that
Right, so maybe it's gonna come back around again. Yeah. I'm
no,
always excited when I see a man who stitches. I'm like,
yeah,
that's
very
great.
yes, yes, for sure. So that's really great. And so you have stitched then for like, I wasn't doing the math of that,
Like
like 20 years.
like 30. Yeah, because I was in my early 20s. I'm in my early 50s. So yeah. Of
So if
course,
you have, go ahead.
I was just because I didn't have a lot of time when my kids were little. So it's something definitely as they got older that, I got more involved with.
Right, right. So I'm going to guess if you inherited your mother's stash and you stitching for 30 years, that you might have a personal stash that's worthy of a good organization.
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. I do. I have a lot of threads. I have, yeah,
Okay.
not too many canvases. And it's funny because the other day I went through my stash and I was like, they're all big. Like I need like some small things that I could just, basket weave. Sometimes you need the easier, more calming project in addition to the challenging one.
I took home a key fob last night. Just 'cause I needed something little fast basket weave, like just to not think about. And that's what I needed right then. So
Yep.
I understand that. So let's talk about your professional background and things like that, because you are a professional organizer, but I'm guessing you didn't go to college for a profession, but you said you
No,
went to college. So talk about your
I did.
college degree, what you've done since, how you ended up being an organizer.
Okay, so I went to Indiana University for journalism, and then I moved. I caught the advertising bug, and I went straight to New York City, where I worked in media research, basically figuring out like what show people should advertise on, what magazine they should advertise in, that kind of thing. And then New York just wasn't for me. I mean, I'm glad that I did it. I think I would have always wondered if I could have done it on my own, but I found it to just be kind of a very lonely place. And so then I moved back to Chicago where my best friend from college lived. And
Right.
that's when I sort of went into marketing research. And so ended up being a focus group moderator. And so that entailed flying like 3 cities a week because a company would want the East Coast perspective, the Midwest perspective, and the West Coast perspective, and then compiling all the data and writing the report. And sometimes I got to travel internationally for that. So
Wow.
when my daughter was born, I was like, I can't do that anymore. I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I, stopped and I raised my son and my daughter. But then I got kind of like, when they got to be in middle school, I was like, oh, I miss little ones. And so then I started teaching preschool. And I did that for a few years, which was a lot of fun. But then it was something that I think it was turning 40 where I was like, because people would tease me sometimes about being so organized and being so tidy. And it wasn't until I hit that 40 mark that I was like, you know what? This is who I am. This is the gift that was given to me.
Right.
And that's when I kind of started to lean into it a little bit, because my friends would ask me, they'd be like, don't give me a birthday gift. Can you come over and help me with my pantry? Or can you do this? Or you could do that. And I was like, you know what? I was at the time in my life where, my daughter was in college, my son was about to be in college, where I had more time, and I didn't want to, like, I knew it was going to be hard when they left. Right. And
Right.
I was like,
Oh,
I need
for sure.
do something to, with all this time that I'm going to have, so I won't be sad. So then I started Your Organized Life, my professional organizing, and I joined NAPO and I took classes and yada, yada, yada. And it's a lot of fun and it's really gratifying. I really enjoy it.
So other people probably aren't going to care about this as much, but I have to ask. So tell me about like the classes, like what kind of, because I feel like many organizers just come to it kind of honestly, but there's obviously a theory and psychology and all sorts of things behind.
Right. So yeah, I definitely, I joke that I was born this way, like this is the way my mind works. But when I joined NAPO, which is the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, they have, all sorts of classes. You take, there's an ethics class, and you can take classes on how to work with people with ADD and how, all across the spectrum, and so I dove in and did like the residential classes for, organizing homes, and so different things like that.
Good. Well, and I'm sure you have voraciously watched the home edit, as have I. My daughter and my husband were like, I'd rather stick a needle in my eye, which we have lots of those in my house, than watch this. They thought I was insane. And I, of course, loved it. It's like,
I mean, yeah, it's like candy, like what all that. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. So you're kind of like a mini home edit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably
I'd
don't
like to
have a
think of
staff that
myself.
flies all over the country, I'm guessing. Otherwise,
No. Mm-mm. Yeah.
you're more the home edit for the real people.
For the real people. Yeah, exactly. I keep it real.
Reese Witherspoon, we love her house, but it doesn't look like mine.
Well, and I do think that makes it hard for people because they see things like the Marie Kondo and like the home edit, and and while that's amazing and beautiful, really your home just needs to be, it needs to function for you. And not everyone has that kind of budget that, you can go out and buy all the products. So
Right.
yeah.
So in terms of a needlepoint stash, many of us have lots of canvases, lots of threads, books,
Mm-hmm.
tools. What other categories am I missing? All those kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I know at my house, my kids have just left, so I don't have the luxury of a craft room, but that's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a dream. But I still want them to feel welcome to come home. So I haven't taken over one of their bedrooms yet, but I keep
Right.
thinking about it.
It will happen eventually, right?
Yeah, so I have like little closets tucked around my house with different categories in them, which is
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the best I can do right now. But I would love for you to talk about, like, if you were to talk to someone like me or someone who had stuff all over the place and zero organization, like mine's like probably 80% organized.
Yeah.
But
You
some
seem
people
organized.
have like, buckets of stuff, like, and it's
Right.
completely
Right.
so I know that, and when different personalities, I'm guessing there's better ways to organize for some people than for others, depending
Right.
on personalities.
Mm-hmm. Some people, it's sort of a continuum of like how precise and how strict you want to be. Like I'm the everything labeled with a label maker, and that doesn't suit everybody. It's not realistic for everybody. But there are certain basic steps that you go through when you're going to organize any space. And the first thing you want to do is, and I'll take you through that. So the first thing you want to do is
I'm
sort.
taking
You
notes.
okay? So and I mean, yeah, whether it's your closet, your pantry, or your needlepoint stash, you want to put like with like. So you want to get your red threads together, your yellow threads together, your Christmas canvases together. You want to categorize everything. And at this
Well,
point,
there's always this big debate in the needlepoint organization world whether people sort by color or sort by thread type. So just
so
throw
okay,
that in
so
there. Someone throw that hitch in there.
No, and so anyway, I was going to say, so I created this document. It's on my Etsy site. It's how to organize needlepoint supplies. It's just a download, and it's got products in there and pictures. So it's got links to products that I already, have used. First thing that I say is a lot of people just sort by color, but really the best thing to do is sort by type and then by color. Because like I know if I have like, a 13 canvas, I'm going to need silk and ivory. Whereas if I have, an 18 count, I'm going to need to go more to like, vineyard. So I, really the pent ultimate is to do it by type and then by color.
But for people who maybe don't have a huge stash yet, the first step would, in your opinion, would be just by color.
Right. Yeah. Or if you're like, if you're that kind of person that organizing just is like sticking a needle in your eye, then it's okay to just do it by color.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
after you've sorted and categorized everything, that's when you look and be like, oh, I have 12 skeins of this color, maybe I should give some away. Maybe I should do destashing. So at that point, that's kind of when you declutter. Although, I don't know. I see people who try to sell thread and I'm like, but you might need that. Why would you sell that? But anyway, so
I think, in my opinion, you sell it or get rid of it if it's a thread that you've tried that you hate.
That you don't like.
Because I happen to love silk lame braid and I happen to love Kreinik. But being a shop owner, I know that there are a number of people who are like, no, 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 don't put any Kreinik, or no, 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 don't put any silk lame. Like they're very,
right.
So if you absolutely hate that type of thread, I say
get rid of it. Right. Yeah.
That's a good reason.
So yeah, so that's when you declutter, and then you take a look at what you're left with, and that's when you think about containers. How am I going to organize this? Where am I going to put it? And so that, I know a lot of people love those Alex IKEA dressers, and I have a link to that in my document because like the upper shelves are kind of more shallow, which is perfect for laying your canvas flat because you do want to keep it flat. And then the bottom drawers are a little bit deeper, to put your threads in. But I mean, I just have a dresser. Sometimes all people have is a shelf in a closet. So that's at the point where you're like, what would be the appropriate container given the space that I have? And I have a couple things here to show. If I can go out of sight here for a second. So I happen to love Kreinik as well, Melissa. And so I just picked this up at Marshall's, and it's just like a little makeup drawer. And so I've got like, the purples and the reds and the pinks in the bottom one, and then the greens. I don't know if you can see this. And just, that just sits in a cabinet that I have in one of my guest rooms.
But you don't have it labeled. Is that so the colors can stay fluid?
Right. I can see what the colors are through this, and I don't, a lot of times, I have heard of people saying they keep a complete list of every fiber that they have. And to me, sometimes you can go a little bit too far in your organizing, because then you're going to have to keep that document updated every time you use a thread. That's not something that I want to spend my time doing. I can see what I have. So when I get a new canvas and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to shop my own, supplies, I can easily pull this out and see what I've got.
Well, and in terms of like those Excel spreadsheets, a little sideline story, I have never kept up my threads because I'm like you, like, I think people that are super organized tend to have a little perfectionism in their life, which to me is a negative. I'm not saying that that's a positive. So if I were to make a thread list on my spreadsheet, and I come from a financial background, so spreadsheets is my heart thing too. But that would just be like, it's so much to maintain that me with my perfectionist personality was just setting myself up for failure. So
and making you feel bad if you forget to put something down. And
yeah. And then I did have a phase where I decided, this was before I owned the shop, and I worked here, and I thought I was buying way too many canvases, in my opinion. And at that point in time. I've had I don't know what the right word is, just come to Jesus meeting with myself, I guess.
Yeah.
In that it doesn't matter how many canvases I have. Right now, if you're not a hoarder
Hmm.
and you don't hoard other things, I
Hmm.
kind of do hoard needlepoint, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
And if you're living within your means and it's bringing you joy, what's the problem with it?
What's the problem? Yep.
But I did have a spreadsheet of all my canvases, and even just keeping up that was hard to, like, when because I'd put notes on there like when I had finished something, and then I'd move it over to the finished page, and it was just a lot of work, and I would rather spend my time stitching than
Stitching.
practice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't have that many canvases, but one of the things I say in the document is if you do happen to have a lot of canvases, that then sort them by type. You've got your holiday ones and your Halloween ones and you know,
And I've used those, and I don't know if you have a particular product that you like, but at Costco, they generally have those 12 by 12 bins that are about this thick, and I think they're really designed for scrapbookers.
yes. Hmm.
They come and there's like five, there's like a clear one, a yellow one, a green one. I don't remember.
Yep.
I have, and they stack. So they're stacked on the
Yes.
top shelf in my closet with
Perfect.
each
And you can
category.
label with
And
your
so
lovely label maker.
I with my label maker,
Yeah.
spring or Halloween,
Yes.
fall, or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's worked really well for me for the smaller canvases. And then and this was something I picked up off of Needlepoint Nation, I think. I use an artist portfolio for the large
Hmm.
canvases because they
Yeah.
keep
And
them
do you
nice.
put acid-free paper in between them?
Well,
Or
it's an artist portfolio. I think
so it's
that
acid-free.
is all acid free. And
So you
so
don't have to.
there's a sleeve on each side. So they're all
So
protected.
they're all separate. Yeah, yeah. That's a great idea. I've seen people hang them, in a closet by pant hangers, and then they make little tags that like stick up on the bar. So like normally like it would be like sweaters and t-shirts and to categorize them that way. So I have done like labels where instead it's like holiday, spring, patriotic needlepoint
Like that
and
idea.
segment them that way if you're storing them in a closet. So
Well, and I'm getting excited about that because, as I said earlier, my kids are not gone yet, and so I haven't taken over a whole room. But we are fortunate enough that we have a back hall closet and we have a front hall closet. And it used to be that the front hall closet was used like for when the guests came over, and the family coats were kept in the back hall closet. Well, truth be told, even before 2020, I really didn't have that many guests that brought over a ton of coats. And so
right.
over that whole closet is now my needlepoint closet.
Nice.
I live in a 1950s house, so I say that whole closet. It's still a tiny closet, but I took the
Hmm.
end side where the rod goes all the way over, and I put shelves in all the way down
Mm.
the
Mm.
end cap, if you can call it that, of that closet. So
Hmm.
that's where I keep my threads, and then I do have some hanging space, but I don't utilize the hanging space very well. So that's a
But
really great.
yeah, you could if you end up with even more canvases or the ones that don't fit in the 12 by 12 if they're really big.
Right.
And another thing I always tell my clients is utilize the back of your door. That is like prime real estate. And as long as, and especially if no one's going to see it and you don't mind having just those little hooks that go up and over the door, um, I use clear shoe pocket organizers. Um, all the time, and then you can label those and or you can just see through them, and that's like a great place for shorter stretcher bars and tools and all those kind of things. But to use that space in your pantry, in the closet, in your bathroom, like that's just a good thing to really give you some more space.
Great idea.
So
Great idea.
um so another product that I like, these are it's just a refrigerator bin
Oh,
that I happen to get this one at Bed Bath and Beyond. Sometimes they have them at Marshall's. Um, but I took a card with me until I could find the right size because I didn't want them sliding around in there. And
right.
this is just the perfect size for Splendor, Silk Lame, anything that's on a card like this.
Nice.
So, and
And
then
then,
and then I do it by color.
so those just little cards that label like what's up next.
Yeah, this label, and I need to put my little labels on there, but so yeah, because this is like Fry Works, and so, and then this is like Frosty Rays, so it's kind of like all the sparkly stuff in this one. But yeah, and so if I have two of the same, because I got all my mother's threads, or like sometimes you buy the same one that you already had, then they go together. So
Nice, nice.
yeah.
Good, good. Oh, I love it.
And
Refrigerator business is going on the list.
and then as so but with other threads that come in a skein, like I have seen people use pegboard and almost do what you've got like behind you in your store,
Yep.
and do the skeins that way. I happen to use the floss away
I'm a
bags.
big floss away bag believer.
Yeah. And then, and so I've got like my vineyard silk in one, or like my silk and ivory, but then I'll do like the pinks and the reds and the oranges together, and the blues and the greens on another O-ring together, and kind of sort them that way.
Yeah, and I when I first started out stitching and I didn't have a very big stash, I first had all of my threads and floss away bags on like one little ring.
Yeah.
And then the rings became like 4 rings of like a couple thread families together. And then I outgrew that system. And I think that's, somewhat typical if people keep stitching. You start out
Right.
with a system and you outgrow it and you have to kind of recreate yourself or your organization.
Exactly.
Right. Um, and so now I'm on to all my little flossaway bags are in a plastic shoebox, like
Mm-hmm.
or whatever.
Yep.
Um,
Like the Sterilite. Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly that kind of thing. With the flossaway bags in them, and I have threads that are probably 20 years old, and they still look brand new because they're all in those little flossaway bags.
Same. Yeah. I recently pulled out, I think it was a Bella Lusso, and I was like, oh, this is the perfect color. And then I was like, do I have enough? Because this is so old that I'm sure that I could never, no one else would have this. So,
Right. Yeah.
but it is nice to be able to shop your own stash, when everything's organized, you're just like, oh, I can use this.
Well, and as a shop owner, I usually say to people, if you've been stitching for any length of time, don't buy threads for an ornament. Like your ornaments are excuses to use your stash,
Yeah.
and your
It's
stash
the
is an
perfect
excuse to
stash
treat
buster.
yourself to an ornament, right? But if you
Right.
buy a big piece, you're going to overbuy because having too much thread is a much better problem than having too little.
Yes.
Matter of fact, you and I were talking recently because you were short these odd beads, right, for
Mm-hmm.
tree project.
Yep.
And that project is from like, at least in my personal stash, at least 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I've been hanging on to it for a long time, and I was like, what do I do?
yes, so, and that's where the needlepoint community is such a great thing because you're like, I need this. Do you have anything like this? I'm like, no, but in my stash at home, I think I have enough 10 beads
And I was like,
left, which is
thank you,
all
thank
you
you.
needed. Yeah, so I think
You saved me.
there's lots of needlepoint angels out there saving each other every day. We see it
I know. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Instagram. It's great. It's great. But you can
Yeah.
only
So, I
save
mean,
people if you're organized. So
right. Yeah. And I mean, people are so grateful,
for sure.
to give them this much, they only needed this much, and you happen to have it. So yeah, great community.
Good.
But yeah, I saw on Instagram this new stitcher, and I'm just so excited that like younger women are taking this up. I'm so glad that it's going to continue to be popular. But she had her threads in like a thin little, almost like a pencil carrying case, and she had them by color, and she had like made a vinyl label. It was so adorable, and I was like, yeah, which is great if you're just starting out, but I was like, in 5 years she's gonna have too much thread for that. But
Well,
yeah,
it'll be like me, who's continued to
you
her
just change.
systems continue to evolve based on
Absolutely.
my needs. And with other organizational things in my life, I take the attitude like something in means something has to go out.
Hmm. The one
Because
in, one out rule. Yeah.
yes, that's in my normal life. That's kind of how I am. But my stitching life, no.
No.
It's like 20 in and maybe use up one and then
Right. It's like the abundance mindset. More is better. Yeah. Maybe not in other areas, but I think, yeah, needlepoint, it's a different game completely. So
well, and the other thing that is really nice about needlepoint, and then we're digressing a little bit, but most people know my shop is knitting and needlepoint.
Mhm.
It's way easier. I don't want to say to hide the stash, but to not have the stash slap you in the face in needlepoint than in knitting, because in
Yeah.
needlepoint our our items are very small and
Small.
easily storable.
Yes.
Knitting yarn takes up a lot of space, and, it can take over your house and cause some, internal guilt, I think, for the amount of space it takes up. So,
Yes, I just visited my sister-in-law out in Taos, and she used to own a knitting shop in Houston that
oh,
she then sold. And she has like the big Sterilite tubs full of yarns, stacked in her closet and in her studio. And so I helped her organize her studio while I was out there. But yeah, a lot bigger. And I was
yeah.
like, girl, you got to start knitting because you've got
Which
to
it
like
probably doesn't have any more than you do, but yours is just smaller in size.
smaller.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So another thing that I wanted to show, because I do have sort of a guest room that there's no, well, now that the kids are gone, I have 3 bedrooms that aren't being used. So one of them I call my diva den, and that is my needlepoint. And there's a cabinet in there. And so this is just cheap little set of drawers that I have, my tacks in the bottom, a bunch of needles, and then needle minders, scissors and things in here. I
Nice.
just labeled it. So something simple, like it doesn't have to be fancy.
Yeah, I think sometimes
Another
people think
idea.
they have to go to like the Container Store and spend thousands of dollars. And there's a lot of things you can pick up at the Home Goods and TJ
Yes.
Maxx and
Mhm.
the dollar store and. So
Exactly. Although I do love a trip to the Container Store. It is kind of my happy place. But
oh,
yeah,
it's
you can
so
use what you have
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I've repurposed a lot of stuff that was my kids' organizational things as they were growing.
Mhm.
And I'm a
Yeah.
big get rid of her, but I never get rid of a plastic bin.
I don't either. I have a place in my attic that's like the organizational zone, because that's another thing about organizing, right? You want everything in its proper zones. So you want your thread zone, your canvas zone, your tools zone. But in my attic, I have like an organizing zone because it's like, I don't use this anymore. I keep it. I might use it later, or a client may need it. So yeah, I don't ever get rid of anything like that.
For sure. One of the things, well, before I talk about that, what are your suggestions for stretcher bars? Since that's how we kind of first came across this with your lovely labeled stretcher bars. So let's talk.
Right. Well, I actually keep my stretcher bars, which I do put the links on them so I can grab them easily. I
You just
have
write on
mine in
with a
a
Sharpie or something, I guess.
mhm,
Right? Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
just with a Sharpie, and I actually keep them in a small trash can, um, so
Mm,
that they're just standing up in a cabinet.
okay.
But that is something that you could definitely, put in one of those, like the shoe pocket holders. You can put it like if you have the drawer space, you could put down like that, that like bumpy shelf liner
Mhm.
and arrange them in there because then they won't slide around.
So my little hijack from Needlepoint Nation, and I wish I could take credit for this, but it is like the favorite freebie organizational tip of mine that I've come across prior to this. Um, is those wine bags you get at the grocery store, and I
Hmm, hmm.
drink wine, so I had to really
I did
scrape
see
mine.
that
And
because
so I
they're
put it in my,
compartmentalized.
yeah, they're free, they're
Mhm.
compartmentalized, and they have handles. So if you are going to the store to pick up the canvas you ordered and you don't know, because we don't always know what size stretcher bars the
Right.
canvas is going to need until it arrives. Because even though we know the design size, the canvas size can always change.
Could vary. Right.
So like you can walk in with your little handled bag of all your stretcher
Say, do
bars.
I have the right size or do I need to buy
And I
them?
keep all the fat ones on so those things are 2 by 3, right? For the wine bag.
Hmm,
So I keep all the
hmm.
fat ones on one side and all the skinny ones on the other side from small to large. Oh, it's so exciting.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful. They also make those little plastic, like you can see them you usually get them at the dollar store where it's kind of the same thing, but it's like plastic. And sometimes people use it like to organize their kids, like, colored pencils and crayons and
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well,
So
and I just
something like,
ordered something from one of my distributors that to me is like a nicer looking version of this wine bag. So we'll see when it comes in. I just ordered one to see if it's going to work, but
yeah.
I ordered that too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Another thing, I have an app called Wonderlist, and it's just a list app. And so I have some things in there that are needlepoint, like, like a list of the size of my stretcher bars. And, like I don't go to the lengths of saying, oh, I have this Krynic. But like if I notice I'm missing something, I'll kind of keep a list on that app so that when I call a store, I'm like, here's the 10 things that I need.
Your basic blacks and whites and golds or things like that, right?
Right.
That
Right.
you'll always need. Nice.
Will always need. Yeah.
Yeah, good. What about books? Do you have any ideas for books?
Yep. So I use magazine holders because they come in lots of different styles. So if you want to keep them out on your desk or someplace, they have so many pretty ones, or you can get the plastic ones and tuck them away. But like I keep my Needlepoint Now magazines. I have a few of the ANG magazines, and I've got the books, and I keep them in like the magazine holders. But there's no reason you couldn't, actually just keep them like books on a shelf with a cute little, bookend.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Good.
I just think it's important, so that you can see the spines, so that you know exactly what it is you
Right.
just pull out what you need.
Yeah. Nice. Good. Okay. What have we missed any other subsets of our needlepoint organization?
So we talked canvases, threads, tools, books. I actually keep my stitch guides. I keep them in a binder.
Oh,
Yep. And they're categorized by like holiday, because like I'll remember, like sometimes I'll look and I'll be like, oh, I remember when I did that stitch on that witch. That was so cute.
yes.
What, let me remind myself, and then I'll go back to it. So
Yeah.
I do keep my stitch guides. I know some people don't, but
Well, it's something that we've all paid for, and there's a lot of knowledge built into those stitch guides. Or
absolutely.
Since I'm a stitch guide writer, I like to think so. So
Right. You like to think someone's keeping them. Yeah. And I just
yeah.
do like a page protector and just
Right.
plop them in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I should have had one of those nearby. So we have little, I'm folding this piece of paper in half, because we have a pad with grid on it that in the
Mhm.
old days, remember the old days when your needlepoint store used to have classes? People would
Yes.
come to class and I draw out stitches for them. And so this size, this half a sheet of paper, happens to also be the same size as Stitches to Go. And
Mhm.
people love their Stitches to Go. Your
Yes.
Stitches to Go will fall apart. I mean, it just will, because it's on that little spiral thing. So,
Yep.
so what one of my students did, again, like I'm not this brilliant, I learned all these things from other people around me. She took the spiral off her Stitches to Go,
Off. Mhm.
put it in little sheet protectors in one of the smaller binders,
Smart.
and extra sheet protectors in back. And every stitch I gave her in class went on there. And so it would have notes on it from what project it was from. And I was
Very
like,
smart.
so clever. So she could
And
always.
then it's all together. Yep. Yeah, that is very smart.
And I felt, I guess, very complimented by that my notes were worthy of the binder.
Of keeping. Yeah, of course. I'm sure. I don't doubt that for a second.
So yeah, that was kind of a cute way to do it too. And so what recommendations do you have for people to like keeping their systems in place? Because I think that's as big a part of the battle as initially getting yourself organized.
Yes. And I deal with this with clients of any project. If I'm going in to do their, closet or their pantry or whatever, it usually ends up that we're having a discussion about time management, which is something that I'm also like super interested in and like way nerd out on time management. Basically, I call it admin time or executive time. Everyone needs to allow themselves and to plan for time to keep your systems in place, whether that's your meal planning or making sure your pantry's tidy, or, you like when I'm done with a project, I don't immediately take all my threads and put them away. I'm sort of like, okay, I'm done with that. I just, want to move on. But I do have a little box that I put them in. And when that box gets full, then it's my filing time. And I just, set aside time to do that, and you just have to peck away at it. Otherwise, it becomes so monumental that you're swimming in thread and canvases. And if you have like even like when I help people go paperless, and I'm like, have a little folder of the things that you need to scan, a little folder. When that folder is full, that's your indication that it's time to spend some time scanning.
Right.
So it's kind of just like a visual clue. It's time to take a break and do some, some executive time.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. Well, I, in that vein, this is my little sideline funny story of the day that will motivate people to organize their threads, because what I have in the bottom of my closet next to the wine bag that's full of stretcher bars is
Mhm.
one of the, I think it's from Lululemon, one of their bags, because they stand flat and they have handles.
Mhm.
And it's the smaller one, it's about this big. And so every time I'm done with a project, the threads get thrown in there, and they're already in floss white bags, but I refile them, and I do it usually once or twice a year. Well, given the last year we've had and how busy things have been at work,
Mhm.
I hadn't gotten around to it since probably like last February. Imagine that time,
Oh,
right? So
uh-huh.
last weekend, I decided it was time. So I pulled this thing out and I went to my dining room table because I needed a big space to be able to spread out. Because I just do mine just by color, because that's how I think. Like at an ornament, I might not care whether it's sparkly or not sparkly, but I do care that it's black. So I
Mhm. Okay.
personally organize by color.
Mhm.
And so I started making all these piles. Well, then I have this soup tureen in the middle of my dining room table that, of course, is just decorative. And I pulled the top off of it to kind of use it as a temporary holding pattern for the sort. And I look in there and I look and I'm like, what's that banking envelope doing in there?
How
And then I open it up and there's
much?
$2,000. Now, I don't ever have cash. The only
You
reason
do now.
only reason this cash existed is because, and it was date stamped March 16th, 2020.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
only reason it's there is because my good friend Terry, who I talk about quite a bit on this podcast, she was convinced, and her husband was convinced, it was a big possibility that in the beginning of this whole pandemic, that
Oh,
some could close down. She's like, you
yeah.
need to get some cash.
Cash. Yeah.
And then, of course, I never have cash. I don't want to carry around cash. When I was cash, like, so one
And
day
then you didn't go anywhere because it was, yeah,
and
pandemic.
so I threw it in the soup tureen, which I never
Oh my
used.
gosh. Yeah.
And then, of course, the irony is you couldn't actually use cash, right?
Right. Right. But it was a good
So
thought.
it
Good
turned
thought.
into
But
the opposite problem. So I totally forgot about it. So the story here is, when I sorted out my threads, I found 3 needle binders, a best laying tool, and $2,000. So
$2,000
everyone should sort their
need
threads.
to go. Yeah. Right now. This is your motivation. Go
And
organize.
honestly, I think in my life, I've never taken out more than like $200 at a time. So
I was
how
gonna say,
I
I'm not a
even
big cash
forgot
person either. It
how I
makes
even
me
forgot,
nervous.
it made me so nervous that I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to put it anywhere obvious in my house. So I put it in the stupid soup tureen.
Yeah, I had a client who called me and she was like, I almost threw, and she was a teacher, and she was like, I have $1,000 check and I almost threw it out. I need your help to set up like a mail processing system. I was like, you need a system. I
Yeah.
love a system. So I set it up. Like she was like, I almost lost $1,000. That would have been bad.
Well,
Yeah.
I was super embarrassed, but then I'm also looking back and I'm like, well, March and April last year were a little bit of stressful times.
I
It
said
doesn't
we all need to give each
mean
other
that I
grace,
forgot
right? Give
forgot that,
ourselves.
Now it's kind of a present. Now I'm like, oh, well, when things
Woo,
open up, I can go on a vacation. I can do whatever. 'Cause I have
yeah.
money to blow. Yeah, that was my big excitement. So,
Yeah.
um, okay. Well, have we missed anything, do you think? Did we?
I know I'm looking over our little things that we said. We talked about where to start and ways and canvases, threads and tools, sustaining a system. No, I think I
Okay.
can't think of anything unless
So if someone were to want to hire a professional organizer, if they felt they weren't comfortable doing this on their own,
Mhm.
um, are like, how would they go about finding someone? Are you available for hire? Are you just local? Like, tell us
um
that kind of thing.
I am available for hire. I live in the suburbs of Raleigh, so anywhere around there. I also do travel a little. I can help people virtually and sort of walk them through the steps and take a look at their space and say, if I were you, I would get this product and that product and sort of
Nice.
walk them through it. So I am available for hire. If you need a professional organizer in your area, and you can email me at legacyneedlepoint@gmail.com is the way to find me. And I'm on Instagram, so you can message me there. But if you go to napo.net, you can enter your zip code and they will give you a list of professional organizers in your area. Whether there's someone who knows about needlepoint, I don't know, but I think anyone who knows the basics of organizing would be able to help.
So is NAPO NAPPO?
PO,
Just
just
one
one
P.
P, NAPO.net.
Okay. And then you also mentioned that document that's on your website, in your Etsy store.
Yep. And on Etsy, I'm Legacy Needlepoint, and it's just, it's 8 pages, and it's got, needle ideas for the tools, the threads, the canvases, the books. There's some pictures in there and links to products. And so that's just a digital download.
Okay. And what's the cost associated with that?
I believe it's $7.99.
Okay. Okay. And I think you sell your Legacy Needlepoint journal on your Etsy site, but a lot of
I
local
do.
Needlepoint stores also carry it, correct?
Yes, stores across the country, and I highly recommend calling your local needlepoint store and supporting them. So,
Thank you. Yes, and I've had them in stock, and I just placed a reorder. So if anyone's
yes,
interested,
and I will get those on Monday. I will send those out.
good. Well, I so appreciate you spending time with us. If anyone's joining us for the first time, please hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, and then you'll get notifications to find out what's coming up. And you just get one little email reminding you that there's a new episode. You can find out more great things from many of our great guests. So
Thank you so much.
Okay, I will hopefully talk to you very soon. Take care.
Thanks, you too.